Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge cycling podcast with Benji Naesen and to the recap of Itzulia Basque Country Stage 3 from Amurio to Ormualde, 167.7 kilometre long stage, fair amount of climbing. I think La Flamme Rouge is to be believed, about 2,600 metres, and a lot of that in the final 25 Ks of this stage. A break was able to form, or would form on the earlier climbs, but it's really the finale that I want to focus on. There's two climbs, 2.1 Ks at 6%, 2.7 Ks at 6%, and then the finale, the 3.1 K climb at 10.2%. It's called the Santa Maria del Yermo, but it's the first 2 Ks that are the steepest, particularly from 500 metres in to 1,500 metres in, averages 14.5% with hairpins, classic Basque stuff. Then it levels off, and so 8.5%. And then the last 500 metres, there's rolly little ramps, and I'll try and show it in the profile, but there's up and down rises, and then the final 150 to 200 metres is downhill. Very similar to stage 1 of the Vuelta last year, which Roglic won when he attacked on the final rise ahead of Cartier Carapaz. And the same was here. There's 2 little rises, a little descent section before then, last rise before a hut, and then a descent. So positioning would be crucial. Benji and I had Roglic as the favourite for the stage as of yesterday. The bookies supported that heavily. I think Pogacar second favourite, Woods third favourite or so, or maybe Godu, not sure. No he or she here. Before we get into the recap, I want to mention our show partner, Lacole. Lacole produce performance cycling apparel. They're based out of the UK, but they got a factory in Italy as well. That's where they produce all their clothing. They've just released a Belgian cobbled classics sort of range in collaboration with Johan Museo, their new ambassador. It's a limited edition collection, and you can see it through the link in the description. But Benji, be honest with me.
Yes.
Were you focusing on Basque Country or Shell de Praise today?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So I started watching the women's Shell de Praise this morning, and in the afternoon I watched the men's Shell de Praise, and then had a bit of a work emergency, so I ended up tuning into Basque Country with about a good 4.5 kilometers to go. So I did still see all the action, but I missed the build-up to it. I missed the tension.
Okay. So Benji was clearly focusing on his Belgian/Dutch races, despite a more interesting race here. I'm going to send Benji out for coffee right now. There's a break with Honoré in it. I love it from Quickstep. They got Knox, who looked really good yesterday and in the TT on the final climb, and see how he goes on this climb here too today. Honoré, too long and hard for him, one would think. Send him in the break, he'd probably be strong in that break. He was there. They got a gap of 5 to 6 minutes. Roglic in the leader's jersey, Pogacar behind, etc. Chavez, minute and a half, 2 minutes behind. Nieve on Bike Exchange, good climber, Spanish guy too. 5 minutes plus behind on GC. Contenders for GC wouldn't be too worried about him. This is the start of my rant, by the way. Benji, I've already started. Oh, he's gone. I just realised. Anyway, Bike Exchange pace a lot of the day and work really hard to bring back that break, which makes absolutely no sense. They use Sagabu Gurmai for a lot of it, and I just want these teams to just turn down the volume of your whatever you're listening to it on, YouTube, and your laptop or your phone. Wake up! Wake up! Roglic is the $1.70 favourite, 3.1 Ks, 10%. Pogacar's here too. Puy-Marie, look it up. They're a different level on these sort of climbs, okay? And maybe if you've got peak Valverde, if you're ISU with Woods, pacing, 100%. I get it. He's looking different level this year. He's one of the best punchers in the world. Look what he did in Murderhoy behind he or she last year. Got to back him and support him as well, particularly for GC. They contribute to chasing down the break. But Jumbo-Visma have brought not a weak team, but not their strongest team. And you're going to let them get away with, once again, slapping Fingston on the front and no one else, and you're going to commit your team to chasing. FDJ as well with Godu. We said he was an outside shot for this finish too. So I get that as well, them pacing when it was clear that the break was going to be brought back. But Bike Exchange pacing for Chavez, yes, he looked good on the long climbs in Catalunya, Pordenay, and Volta. Looked great. Took a stage win. This is different. This is a 10-minute pure watts per kilo steep climb, and he was never going to come in the top 5. So Nieve in the break should have been the play. And even if it wasn't getting Nieve in the break, why are you helping Jumbo Visma? Why aren't you putting the onus on them to chase? Maybe they wouldn't have chased, but I think they wanted bonus seconds for Roglic, so they would have had to do something. But anyway, that's my rant about Bike Exchange. I have no idea why they paced today. Someone can let me know down below. But anyway, the break got caught. I think Honore was the last to get mocked up with 12 Ks to go. And it was clear that ISU were riding really hard for Mike Woods. They wanted to get him in good position, but they went to a town with like 6 Ks to go. We've done the final 2 climbs, the 2K, 2.5K at 6% ones before the finish, and nothing's happened, pretty much. Woods, Kelderman, suddenly we see Carapaz and Higuita are off the front, and Woods and Kelderman have crashed again in a corner. And Benji, how many times has Kelderman crashed so far this season? Like 3 or 4 times? Got to be the most unlucky rider so far this year.
Yeah, not even alone this year. Like in his career, he's had a lot of bad luck, and it's not always his fault. So with some riders that have a lot of crashes, when they're crashing alone, you start to doubt whether it's their fault that something happens. But when it comes to Kelderman, we had that he hit a motorbike at some point, or a motorbike hit him. I don't know the history of that in the Giro at some point in his life. And then we had the accident at the start of the season with a car, and now we venture on to his hand a few days ago. If it was yesterday or the day before, I don't remember. And today again. So, yeah, sometimes I wonder as well, is Kelderman a factor in the fact that he crashes a lot of times? Do you think today that was the case, or do you think that he was taken out by I don't know?
I'm not sure what happened. We didn't really see it. They didn't show the heli overhead. But it meant that Carapaz, Higuita, Magnus Cort leading out Higuita, and Aurelien Barbantra went up the road. They entered the base of this climb ahead of that group. Cort paced really hard for them. Higuita was trying to pace. Carapaz was sitting on, maybe not sure should he be helping Adam Yates. It's kind of an unintentional gap because of the crash, like on stage 2, and Carapaz slid out. I'm not sure who was pacing behind. I think it was UAE. It was UAE. They was trying to set something up for Pogacar. They'd listened to Benji's recommendation on the podcast yesterday that you need to go hard early at the base of the climb, make it a long effort, not just, well, it's never going to be easy on these gradients, but then not just a sprint at the end. They eventually caught Carapaz, who tried to reattack from that group, and Pogacar attacked. His first attack marked pretty easily by Roglic. Roglic sitting on. They then worked together a little bit. Roglic didn't counter, basically sitting on mostly, caught by a large group with Valverde, Godu. Mike Woods, by the way out of contention. The crash, he crashed quite heavily, so he was way behind. He continued. I'm not sure if Kelderman's abandoned. I think he has. He looks pretty banged up, the poor guy. But yeah, Woods is not there. But Godu, Valverde, and co are chasing. They do chase them back. And then it settles down once again. Everyone looking at each other. Are Ineos going to pace? Is Adam Yates going to try and gain some time? Vingegaard is just sitting at the back of this group. Pogacar attacks again. This time gets a bigger gap, but marked by Roglic easily. Pogacar's blowing a little bit. I was thinking, is he going to counter him? We're at the last 500 meters of the steep section of the climb, 1,800 meters to go, maybe. Roglic doesn't counter. They start to work together. Roglic actually doing a lot of the pacing. And I'm thinking, is this Puy-Marie again? I'm like, Roglic, is he happy to just put time into everybody else except Pogacar? And then they get brought back again, perhaps indicating that Roglic wasn't riding full or, wasn't feeling it as well, given that he didn't counter. We've never really seen him try and counterattack at a moment like that against a proper GC contender that early on a climb. I think Cherubler, Paris, you may say he went early, but that was, I mean, yeah, you can mention that, but Pogačar wasn't there. So he didn't counter, sitting on, which is, I think, is fine. I think riding defensively, if you commit to that, you're ahead on GC. That's your prerogative. You're in the leader's jersey by 26 seconds or 24 seconds or something because you did a good TT and Jumbo-Visma had you in a better time slot. And they get brought back. Finally, there's another acceleration. The group that comes back to them has Yates, Godu, Galanda. He's back. Landisma. Valverde, who'd been at the back of the group, looking good in that group as well. And Godu. Godu tries to counter. We're now getting we're on the not so steep section of this climb. Probably in the last kilometre, Godu tries to sneak on the left-hand side, tries a little attack. We've got up and down sections here. We've got a little rise, then a flat section. So when you look at the average gradient, it looks, well, it underrates how steep the little pinches are. And then Roglic launches with 620 metres to go. You can see it on Twitter, probably the last kilometre somewhere if you want to look it up. 620 metres to go. Gets marked by Valverde. They got a short, flatter section, slight downhill. Valverde's on Roglic's wheel. He then gives up Roglic's wheel. Pogačar closes it. He was right on Valverde's wheel. Has to close probably a bike and a half length. He's in Roglic's wheel in a draft for this short section. We've then got this nice final pinch, final rise with about 250 metres to go before they go past this hut. I'll put a screenshot of it. This hut is the last rise, last section you can attack. Then you got a technical, narrow downhill. Roglic, he was already done at this point. When they got to that hut, Roglic had been sprinting for 30 seconds, and Pogačar on the hoods after Roglic had kind of tried to close him off to the right-hand side. Pogačar goes back to the left-hand side on the last bit of uphill, attacks Roglic, gets in front of him, and it doesn't matter how far you are in front of him, you cannot pass in this final. If you watch it, it's so narrow, so twisty, just like stage one, or more hectic than stage one, Vuelta 2020. And Pogačar wins the stage, I would say, mugging Roglic a la Grand Colombier stage 15, which I'll get into in a second. But what's your perspective on that finale, Benji? A, do you think Roglic could have countered Pogačar earlier in the climb? B, do you think he went too early? C, how do you rate the relative strength of Pogačar against Roglic right now?
Okay, 3 big questions, but I'll get into it. First of all, I believe that Roglic was not in the position where he needed to be the rider that puts on the offensive. Pogačar is behind in GC. That makes him, necessary to make the moves, and we saw that today multiple times, Pogačar with those moves. What I was surprised by at a certain point was that the moment that Roglic went, it seemed like Pogačar was ahead of Roglic because, Roglic is on the defensive. And the speed at which Pogačar is just at a normal climbing rate, and then suddenly he sees Roglic on his right, the speed at which he responds, his reflex is insane. Like it's crazy. He gets to that wheel ASAP. He even kind of mingles with Valverde there, and Valverde eventually takes that second spot and closes that down basically for him. And then when Valverde lost the wheel of Roglic, Pogačar had to do that extra bit to get to Roglic's wheel, and that's again some extra stuff he would need at the end, but eventually didn't really need that, it seemed. I think when it comes to the final, though, I think a lot played on the technicalities of the finish. When I saw the profile, when I saw the stuff I checked yesterday evening, didn't expect this to be such a technical final when it comes to, first of all, you've got that ramp down and then a bit of ups and downs in the final kilometer leading towards that final descent section. And towards that hut that you're talking about, you know what the hut is called, by the way? They've actually got a name for that hut.
Hut.
Jabba the Hutt. Sorry, Star Wars people will get the joke. So when you get to that hut, your face is so dead right now. So they get to that hut, and I feel like the person that gets to that hut the first it's going to be really hard to pass that person into the final 150 meters. I think that section from that point onwards is not long enough, and the descent additionally on top of that, to make sure that the second rider can get past the first person. And I think Pogacar proved in UAE Tour on Jebel Hafid. Yeah, it was both Jebel Hafid, but the one where he
Both times
decided
against
to
Lutsenko and Yates.
Yeah, exactly. Both times he proved that he knew the parkour from beforehand. He played Yates basically perfectly out on that Jebel Hafid finish by using that descent as his advantage just before the finishing uphill section. And here he uses the section before the descent because he knows that once you're in that position, it's unlikely that you're going to get past in that last descent. And I think if you look back towards Arate, the finish on the first Vuelta stage you were talking about earlier, Roglic did that there. Exactly the same thing.
Yep.
He used the
The last rise launched.
Yep. And then into that descent, he knew, I'm at the front. They can't pass me here if I keep on pedaling to the line. And he kept that up, and he won that stage as well eventually. So I think the technicalities of the finish played a big role. Personally, I don't know if I can say whether Pogacar is so much stronger than Roglic here. I think that we've seen the time trial, and the time trial still sits on my nerves a bit with the fact that I expected more from Pogacar there, like straight up. And
I think
the
it's just
fact
an
that
off day.
it's possible, but what does that make it for Roglic today? Is it just an off day that he loses from Pogacar here? You think it's full on Pogacar is winning the Tour de France by 10 minutes mode?
No. I just think, well, it depends. I mean, he's just gifted this young Slovenian a World Tour level win. So now UAE are going to work for Roglic in the Tour de France and allow him to win the Tour de France because that's how professional cycling works. And Mikel Landa's not going to help them. But this is just a pattern from Jumbo-Visma. And listen, Pogacar was probably stronger today. Otherwise, you'd expect, well, would you? I don't know. Would Roglic counter? Maybe not. But I think people say maybe you're too critical. But then I'll link it down below, the Twitter or whatever, the YouTube video from the last kilometre of stage 15 of the Tour de France last year.
Yep.
Roglic is so good, wins so often, it seems absurd to criticise them or Roglic for not winning sometimes when he wins so much. But against Pogacar, he doesn't actually head-to-head win that much or that regularly. And you look at stage 15, Grand Colombier, they completely fucked that up, that finish. Large group again. They're riding defensively, which is fine. Roglic is so good in the sprint at the end. So ride defensively, I get it. Same again today. Wait for the sprint. But he attacked there off a slow pace, with Dumoulin blowing up, he'd been pulling for ages, with Kuss on the wheel, with a large group. And he attacked, and he got closed down easily by Pogacar, gave up a draft for ages. He was actually bailed out a bit by Port. He attacked with 650, and then Pogacar mugged him for the win at the end. He jumped early, closed him off a bit in the corner, and won. Same thing today. He attacks with 620 meters to go, allowing Pogacar to have, and not, by the way, this is not off a counter, not off bringing someone back. This is off, everyone's been looking at each other. I think Godu or Valverde were riding false tempo on the front, so everyone's kind of looking, expecting an attack. It's a largish group. They'd not been attacking each other in the last 30 seconds, I don't think. So there's not great timing to get initial separation. You need evidence of how effective timing can be. Look at Aaron Barril-Freire yesterday. So there's not that. He also goes into this section where he offers up a draft to Valverde and then Pogacar. Pogacar's getting his draft in a section which is actually important. They're going 40 k's an hour, I think, plus. And by the time they get to just before that important hut, he'd been sprinting for 30 seconds, Benji, and he was done. It wasn't a gift today. He'd been sprinting for 30 seconds. Pogacar, his recovery intra-climb is insane, but attacked him, got the win. If you're going to ride defensively and not go for proper time, why not just wait for the last 250, launch up that last rise? When he is sprinting head-to-head fresh, Pogacar, I think, is quicker. Roglic is quicker than Pogacar, and that's why I think, it's not just me. Dumoulin had the same issues with some of Jumbo-Visma, the way they rode and can ride. these finales. And I think UAE and Pogačar, they seem to know the finales so well, almost where each rise is. They study it. He knows.
And
But that being
one
said,
thing
Benji, do you think this has any bearing on the tour? Does this really change anything, or is it just another data point?
Yeah, it's another data point, and I think it's just acknowledging that both are better than everybody else at the moment. I can't say if this is going to give me a deciding factor between the two for the Tour de France. I personally just think that Pogačar in general has a bigger potential as a climber than Roglic, and that's my personal opinion on that. Like in the long term, and we saw that already kind of last year as well, but towards this year perhaps even more in the Tour de France. But like the thing I noticed as well was, and this is not something Roglic does on purpose, or perhaps he did, but not with a bad thing in thought. Every single time Roglic takes a corner in fast with Pogačar in his wheel, he takes it very wide, and he kind of pushes Pogačar, who is trying to get past him on that side, kind of in the gutter. And it's not on it's not that he means to put him in the barrier or anything. No, he just closes the door ahead of him in the same way that Lutsenko forgot to do it on Jebel Hafid. And that's one thing I noticed today, that twice or three times on the climb, I noticed that Roglic taking a corner, he chooses to close the door to make sure Pogačar cannot go on the right. And then Pogačar, who is trying to go to the right, but not endangered in any way, kind of sits up and has to decide to go on the other side. And we saw that two to three times today. And I think it's a noticeable thing. I don't know what it means. I don't know if it means anything.
Well,
I think
it's
that
proof it's not
just
a gift.
aware. Yeah.
People are saying maybe, he didn't contest the finish. Nah, he was cooked, knew he was cooked, and he was like, fuck, I got to shut the door or something on the right-hand side. I think it's proof of that.
Yeah, and I think it's also in addition to once Roglic is in a position in the last 150 meters where he's in second wheel, I think he knows that he lost. And I think then it's normal that you sit up in the last 100 meters because, like,
it's downhill. It's so
like
narrow.
Pass anyway, yeah. I don't think you should look into the final 100 meters of sitting down by Roglic into an aspect towards weakness or something. I think just in general, I think that we don't know too much more today, but it's good that Pogačar won because now, did he get bonus seconds for this? Because then he's closer to GC, right? Nice.
I should read out this final results.
Better race.
Tadej Pogačar first, same time as Roglic on 4 hours, 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Valverde third on 5 seconds in a group of Yates and Landa on the same time as him. So Pogačar takes 10 bonus seconds, Roglic 6, Valverde 4. Remember, Pogačar took 4 bonus seconds too in stage 2 yesterday when he came third behind Aramburu and Fraile. So he's made up 8 seconds on Roglic in the last couple of stages. Go to 6th on 8 seconds. James Knox, very nice result, 7th. He's looked very good on 16 seconds in a group with Vingegaard and Van Sevenant. So the young guns going well there. McNulty 10th on 18, I think that's really nice, actually, on a finish like this. And I think
I agree.
That's kind of what I said yesterday. His watts per kilo from 8 out to 20 minutes, like world class, and this is a watts per kilo climb, but it's those longer climbs that seem to be an issue. Other riders, Schachmann lost 32 seconds. I think his punch, or not punch, this is a 10-minute watts per kilo test, got found out a little bit today. Chavez 13th, losing 20 seconds in a group of Bilbao, and Higuita, nothing really of note. GC standings right now, Roglic still leading Pogačar, who moves up into second on 20 seconds. Maybe PCS is wrong. Don't really trust what it's saying. McNulty still third on 30. Yates fourth. Oh, no, it's true because Woods moved out loads because he lost so much time. And Aramburu dropped, so it is correct that Pogačar's moved a couple of spots. Yates fourth on 39. Valverde fifth on 50. Isn't it crazy, Benji, that Valverde straight up, not even memeing, he is clearly Movistar's best GC rider for any type of Grand Tour.
It's so funny. Have we seen anything from Lopez yet in like a proper race where he was leader though? Because we don't know that yet. But then again, Valverde is the king, so I don't know. I don't see that changing. But
I forgot Lopez joined them.
I think when it comes to the rest of the top 10, the most notable things for me is that we see that this young Belgian guy, Mauri van Zevenand, he's 21 right now, and this dude just keeps on performing, doesn't he? Like,
Yeah,
Vingegaard as
he's
well.
good.
He's 24 already, so 3 years older, but van Zevenand, we met him last year. Well, I kind of knew him from 2 years ago from the Giro Rosa or some other Italian race, Val d'Aosta or something, where he got pretty close or won. I don't remember. And last year, of course, when he ended up in that ditch while Uran was chasing him in the Flèche Wallonne stage. That's a memorable note, and that's one way to show yourself the first time around in World Tour. So, yeah, I think that he's been growing throughout the season. He's won already this season, and I think we're going to see more and more of him. And like we've not mentioned it yet, yesterday, I think, 5-year new contract for Evenepoel at Quickstep.
Wait.
Okay.
I want to talk about that.
Okay.
Well, wait.
Good.
Let me do the profile first of tomorrow's stage 4 from Vitoria-Gasteiz to Ondarribia, 190 Ks, hilly once again. It kind of looks like a harder version of that stage 10 Giro stage, which I've already referred to. It's got 3 Ks at 7.5%, 4.6 Ks at 6%, rolly. And then the final 50 Ks has Da Iscabel, 8 Ks at 5.5%, and I think that's a fake news climb if I'm not mistaken. It's a half. It's not got any obscene pass, I don't think. There's just a couple of flatter sections in there, and also the Eriats climb, which is disgusting. 4 Ks at 10.3%, but there's 500 meter sections of 13.2, 11.2, 11.8, 11 at the start. So they do that. That crests with a false crest with 23 Ks to go. Then they do a little bit more false flat climbing and then up and down descent and then a flat run in of, say, 10, 8 Ks into the finish. A tricky little stage. I don't know, Benji. I think Pogačar's going on the attack again, and he's going to be in a group with Roglic and Landa or someone like that for the finish.
He's going to need to keep pushing. He's on 20 seconds now, so he's a bit closer already. He's going to need to get more time. And the place to do it is that climb, because I don't think that not attacking there is a good idea. I think that it's also not dangerous to attack on it. This might be a bit like the Paul d'Arun stage in the Tour de France where
that's what I was thinking.
Bonus second, where Hirschi was like yodeling at the front in the breakaway, and Pogačar attacked on the climb, and I think some other people as well, and they eventually caught Hirschi on the flat section afterwards. So it's not dangerous to attack on that climb. And
Roglic isn't going to counter him and ride to the finish.
Yeah, the problem with Roglic is that I don't think he can be put into a position of trouble on this climb. I'm curious with the Eisgebel climb just before that, if they even dare to open it earlier, but I don't know if I expect that. Perhaps to isolate Roglic on the first of those two, because let's be real, despite Vingegaard, the rest of the team hasn't been at the front of the race throughout too much. So I think if they go hard on Eisgebel, they might be with Vingegaard and Roglic on the last climb alone, right?
And Vingegaard is more in hanging on mode than I'm going to pull back this move from what I've seen. So interesting stage tomorrow. I think Pogačar probably the favourite or the break. Pogačar, Roglic again. And then I don't know how Woods will be. If he's lost a lot of time, maybe Woods can get in the break. I think he came today. I can't see him on the PCS readout, so that's not good. But if he's lost a lot of time, maybe get in the break. Who knows? I think if I'm Bike Exchange, I want to get Nieve in the break, riders like that, and see how they can go. Honoré, Knox up there on GC, so ignore that. All right. That's enough from us today. We'll be back tomorrow with the Basque Country Stage 4 recap. Pogačar's going to attack again. You can bookmark that, clip that, guarantee it. Replay it tomorrow. Ciao.